Hi everyone and welcome back. Today we'll carry on with the idea of acceptance. Let's dive in it a bit more. So, with the help of acceptance, we can reach a state where we don't have to struggle with anything at all. Simply by knowing ourselves, by finding our own approach to life, we can calmly evolve to this level without any particular stress. Sure enough, inevitably you'll have to do something new, and that also causes rejection and resistance. But if we know what to do with it, we can overcome these bits in order to do something new and achieve something else. That's what we start all of this for. There are certain practices, there is a specific methodology for how this is done. From my experience of awakening, a whole story unfolded. Dissatisfaction, pain, resentment, there was a whole bunch of feelings. I just went outside to observe with acceptance, and fortunately I was at a retreat, not sitting somewhere at a meeting where I couldn't just leave, so I could spend hours alone with myself. I felt stressed, like when someone wants something from you, and when you're in this kind of state, you have the opportunity to know what to do with it. Thank God I knew what to do with it, or at least I had an idea, since it had been explained to me. So I just started observing what was happening inside me. I began to realize that I was feeling all of this right now. All this rejection started coming up, just a bunch of unpleasant, absolutely disgusting feelings. I started to notice that, as it turned out, I get offended, that I actually feel envy, that I didn't accept things, that I didn't want someone else to get results faster than I did. At that moment, it was a surprise to me. Before that, I wasn't aware of it. And when I realized this, I just felt disgusted with myself. I was completely fundamentally opposed to it. It was news to me. Just imagine you find out about yourself that you're actually a disgusting, absolutely repulsive person, even though you never thought of yourself that way. And everyone around you always said you were wonderful, kind, generous, and so on. And then you find this out about yourself. Of course, that brings even more pain, even more rejection. It's quite a surprise, to be honest, so I started to observe this as well. And at some point, I just didn't want to live anymore. I just started crying. Snot was running down my face. Some kind of mucus started coming out from all these realizations. And at some point, I just started asking for forgiveness from all these people I had treated that way. I saw my own need for control there. I saw a whole bunch of really unpleasant things I never even knew about myself. How I manipulated people, how I did everything the way it suited me, disguised as some kind of goodwill, and so on. Well, and it was extremely unpleasant to see and realize all that. But at some point I understood that if things turned out this way, then that's how it was meant to be. So that's when acceptance finally came. But it came because I started to just look at all of it openly, to observe, and by then I already had that skill. And at some point it just started coming the right way. Well, I just started to look at it unconditionally. And then all that pain, resentment, and various experiences started to come out of me like so. All of it just started pouring out. Along with it came mucus, snot, and some drool. I was literally sitting in all kind of things. I was covered up to my elbows in all of it. And when it was over, when everything passed, I felt comfortable, I felt joyful, as if someone had pulled a huge lump of dirt out of you, something that was stuck in your chest and just caused you pain and nothing pleasant at all. And when I stood up and opened my eyes, I saw that, wow, the world had become brighter, more vivid, more beautiful, more three-dimensional, somehow more alive, as if all the objects were looking at me and as if they were all breathing or something like that. Well, those who experience a near-death experience or a deep experience of the present moment, for various reasons this can happen, but sometimes people feel something similar. And this happened just out of the blue. Yes, there were a lot of practices, of course, every day, but without any substances, without any supplements, nothing like that, no intense physical stress or anything else, thanks to this kind of living through. And then many years later, how long has it been? More than 5 years, probably 5.5. Since then, there have been a huge number of such acceptances already. So each time it's like a new awakening. That is, each time you start to perceive this world differently. It's as if something inside you is being pulled out, like something unnecessary, like yet another blockage being removed. There's this term, blocks, clamps, some kind of internal resistance, all of that. When they leave you, you feel relief. And when they leave you, it can even be painful. It might even be scary, maybe even unpleasant and lonely, but you feel it while it hasn't left you yet. So by accepting this pain, fear, these unpleasant sensations, this sense of loneliness, it sets you free. You free yourself from it. And it's as if it just dissolves somewhere, disappears, and you feel stronger, as if a flow of energy spreads throughout your whole body. It's like an explosion, as if something bursts and there's this whoosh, a wave just washes over you with very pleasant sensations. It doesn't always occur like this, but it has happened many times. You might start laughing or crying, but not from grief or sadness, but from joy, from a sense of liberation. With those tears and laughter, the last bits of that tension are released. This is what acceptance is, but there is a big difference between acceptance and endurance. Endurance is when something bothers me and I just put up with it. I don't agree with it. It still hurts me, but I endure it. It's like when someone is in a relationship they can't stop for a long time. They're angry, they dislike everything, but they can't leave because, for example, they're afraid of having to split property. Or because, I don't know, they're just used to living that way. It's convenient for them to live like so, for example, because the other person makes a lot of money, and otherwise they'd have to look for a separate apartment and so on. There are lots of reasons, or maybe they're just used to it. Sometimes it's just hard to say goodbye, or they regret the time they've invested. That happens too. And for these reasons, they just keep staying in the relationship, even though it's long since run its course. That's not acceptance, but still endurance. In other words, they don't like it, but they put up with it for some reason. Because at this stage, they can't help but endure it. They can't bring themselves to end it all. But acceptance is, to some extent, agreement, and at the very least, the absence of resistance to what's happening. For example, you have a headache, or you start to feel nauseous, or some unpleasant feeling pops up, like guilt or fear of something. We can feel it. First and foremost, you need to notice it and see that this is not you. I mean, what you are experiencing right now is not you, because usually a person identifies with it. They start to think, I am scared. They associate themselves with these thoughts, with this fear, and begin to identify it as themselves. That's the whole problem. At this point, it's like you gain an outside perspective as if you are observing it. There is me, the one who observes, and then there is this, what I am observing. Some kind of unpleasant feeling, for example. And then I simply and calmly observe what is happening. I understand that it can't hurt me in any way. That is, it's just fear, just anxiety, or just pain. Pain indicates that my body doesn't like something, there's some kind of distortion, some kind of tension usually accompanies pain. And I just try to relax. Usually, when a person feels pain, they try to tense up even more, fighting against the pain. More often, unconsciously, a person tries to do something about it. They don't like it. They try to somehow get rid of this pain, but you need to do the opposite. You just need to relax and open up to it. This is a skill that needs to be trained. It's actually the most important skill in life, because when we learn to accept what life demands of us, everything becomes possible, so to say, simpler. And life requires us to move up the steps of awareness, meaning that we understand more and more about who we are and why all of this is necessary. And this happens through releasing those tensions, those limits, those pains, those resentments, those chronic illnesses which leave us along with all of that, and so on and so forth, everything we carry inside. Inside our consciousness, all of this accumulates, and inside our body as well, because the body, being the densest shell, carries everything that exists within us on deeper levels, so to speak. In the subconscious, in various parts of our consciousness, there are certain programs, some past incarnations, some innate stories, everything that our DNA carries. All of this can be released, all of this can be changed. And what makes acceptance possible? It happens because we allow everything that exists to be just as it is, not in the sense that I simply endure it, but in the sense that I find love in it. So, I try to look at it in a way that I am not fighting it. And this is quite an advanced skill that needs to be trained, which is why it usually needs learning. But today, I'll explain the general principle of how this works. That is, when you don't like something, you simply observe your own state. For example, some kind of tension. Everyone has probably experienced this. When you argue with someone and you feel tension in your stomach, or a lump here in your throat, when you've said too much or on the contrary couldn't say what you wanted. some kind of unpleasant tension appears. And then this tension, it's as if you feel it in the air when you've had an argument with someone and you're both in the same space. So it kind of puts you under pressure. Why? Because at that moment we shut ourselves off from life, as if in capsules. In fact, a person lives in this capsule. They just sometimes open up a little, and then this flow of life passes through. This is the main resource that nourishes us and resets us at night, when we connect to this source in the deep phase of sleep, when it's dreamless sleep, when we don't remember anything. For half an hour, 2 hours a night, we reach this state. This is a deep immersion. I think that's when the brain's delta waves are activated. It's a profound connection with this original source. This can be achieved through practice, and thanks to this, acceptance is also achieved. It's training the ability to accept all of this. And when we immerse ourselves, we reboot ourselves through this. In other words, we rest quickly, because at that moment when we are in this depth, our resistance disappears. At least some part of it does. And this life energy, which circulates through us during sleep, begins to flow through us. And that's why in the morning, if we've slept well, slept deeply, and nothing bothered or distracted us, if we weren't anxious about anything, then we wake up refreshed and restored, feeling energetic. And we can go and enjoy a new day again, even though in reality our body was just lying there in bed for 8 hours. So, this happens not because we were just resting in bed, but because we deeply entered other states of mind, other states of our consciousness. If this doesn't happen, then a person doesn't get enough rest. They wake up in the morning feeling just exhausted, or they suffer from insomnia because they can't go deep enough. And this skill allows you to go deep not only during sleep. In fact, it starts working better in sleep because the conscience gets used to it, finds its way there, remembers how to do it. But you can also do this during meditation, during the practice itself. It doesn't matter if you're sitting, lying down, standing, or even riding on public transport. You can simply use this skill to dive deep within yourself and rest, recover a little. And in this way, we develop the ability to observe what is inside and to understand what is happening there, what processes are taking place within. When we see something that we don't like, for example, a person doing something unacceptable to us, we start to observe what's happening inside ourselves using this skill and understand that it's possible to do. For instance, right now, some of you might be hearing about this for the first time, and you can already start to observe what is happening inside you at this moment. And what do you feel inside when you argue with someone, for example, or when someone stares at you or says something unpleasant to you? Instead of looking at that person with judgment or getting caught up in some other reaction and engaging in a struggle with them, you can observe what is happening inside you during all of this. And this is a very useful skill, the ability to observe what is happening inside us. What is going on inside us when we are out for a walk, when we are having a conversation? What is going on inside us when we are arguing with someone or simply fighting over something? What is happening inside us when we are working? So when we track this, we might, for example, start to notice that we tensed up at some point, or suddenly we started to feel a bit of pain, or at another moment we began to feel fear and something inside us tightened. And simply by relaxing, we already make our lives much easier and better. And this ability of switching to conscious observation of what is happening inside us is a very important skill that also develops over time. In fact, this is what is called mindfulness. That's basically it. Try it out. Thank you for watching the video. If you liked it, feel free to hit the like button. Your support is much appreciated.